As we continue our journey through Leo season and the fifth house of creativity, romance, and pleasure, we're now coming in through gate number 33, which is the gate of retreat. And it is our last activation within the throat center, our center of communication, metabolism, and really how we step into the energy of manifestation. We're going to go through the energies of the shadow of forgetting, the learning opportunity of paying attention, looking towards cultivating the gift of mindfulness, and moving towards the highest light aspect, the Sudi, which is all about revelation. In the teachings of the I Ching, the gate of retreat is really about a journey of remembering. And it says you assimilate life experiences and recharge your whole being by withdrawing, whether on a physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual level. So this invites us in for an opportunity to really relax into the contemplations and to give our inner child permission to rest. And a lot of times when we're trying too hard or we find ourselves exhausting a lot of energy, feeling afraid or feeling like we have to fight to be seen, to be heard, to be acknowledged, that's really aspects of our inner child that needs the parent of us, our higher self, to remember it, to remember its divine nature, to remember that it's always been something, to remember that we don't have to fight. Our place is assured within the world, and we all have a destined path to follow. When we look at our human design chart, we're going to find that gate 33 in your throat center. So do check your chart to see if you have it colored in, meaning this is consistent energy for you if you have gate number 33 through its voice of remembering or not remembering, and really focusing on sharing lessons of the past. If your throat center happens to be white in your chart and you have gate 33 circled, you may very likely be picking up on the collective energy and hearing, feeling, sensing, knowing within yourself when somebody else is remembering a truth within themselves, a lesson they have learned, when they're extracting some wisdom, or when they're purely coming from their mind. So, gate 33 is really one of two storytelling gates. In this case, it comes from a voice that is very reflective. It gets to the point. It doesn't like to do a lot of embellishing. It doesn't necessarily have a lot of emphasis or color within the voice. It is very much reflecting. It's going deep inwards to bring the remembering forward, to be able to hear it through one's ears, but to also share it to an audience that is ready to listen and receive its teachings as well. So it really does speak from a voice that is very authentic and it's sharing its own life experiences, but through a deeper soul connection in knowing that the more it becomes vulnerable and the more it allows itself to just be, to remember, that it will also help somebody else to remember themselves. We quite often see similarities when we have conversations with other people and they're sharing aspects about their journey or their awakening or some of their trials and struggles. And you go, yeah, I've had a similar experience like that too. So it also provides a way for us to really bond together as humanity and to realize, we're not so alone. Yes, we have our unique journeys to go through. Yes, we have our destined paths and all the fated experiences that will come with that. But there is also a lot of opportunity to know that there are many others that are walking similar journeys in their own way, and we all approach it from a different level of growth. Some are just starting their journey, some are halfway through their journey, some have made it to the end. And when we really look at the place of being at the end of a journey, the perseverance and the clarity that comes when reflecting back to who you were in the beginning, who you were in the middle, who you are now at the other end of that story, now that comes with a level of maturity, a level of self-actualization, and an opportunity to be a powerful guide for somebody who's just starting their journey, if they're open to receiving that guidance. A lot of times, and especially as a parent, we're looking at our children going, man, I wish they wouldn't make the same mistakes that I did. I just want to prevent them from having to go down that road. That road was so hard. But yet, when you look at your life and you look at your path, everything that you went through built the person of you who is today. And when we step into prevent our children, our loved ones from experiencing life, we can guide, we can come from a place of sharing our own experience to maybe help plant the seeds of consideration, but we can't interfere and we can't prevent them from making their own choices. And sometimes we do find ourselves making choices to have our own experience, to learn the consequences, to really understand why it was maybe not so good to go in that direction. But it's really holding the faith that no matter what your children decide to do, your loved ones decide to do, what yourself decided to do, you will have another version of you at the other end of that. You will have a lot of opportunities to learn, to grow, to have grace, to offer forgiveness. And we're really here to experience life to the fullest. So it's not about looking back and beating oneself up. It's living a life well lived, meaning we are here to experience it all. And some things we will enjoy, some things we won't enjoy. You're going to know for yourself what feels right, what doesn't feel right. And we hold the space and the grace that others will come to those conclusions for themselves. So we use the voice to share experiences, to help others consider, to do their own self-actualization, not to come from a voice that tells somebody what to do or expects them to do as we tell them to do. It is all about allowing for one's own life experiences and holding that place of wisdom for ones that you've learned, and also understanding we're going through new experiences at all times. There's also a tendency in this gate to hold a lot of privacy. So that might be privacy within yourself where you're not ready to share until you've reached your own clarity, or you feel that energetic connection with somebody else where you just know it's safe to bring my guard down. It's safe to have an authentic conversation. Maybe you're sensing that the other person is really listening in that, the timing is right in that. You are also likely somebody who, if others confide in you, you hold that in confidence. So gossiping can be really hard for individuals with gate 33 because that does not feel right. And maybe you've had experiences that taught you those lessons. Maybe you're in the middle of kind of knowing that, oh, my body really indicates that this isn't the avenue for self. Maybe you're looking at yourself and recognizing, I really do hold a lot of secrets inside my body. And maybe there's an opportunity here to release those secrets, not by passing them along to another person, but by offering them out to a higher power, to take that weight off your shoulders, off your chest, off of the mind and worrying about some of that, and releasing whatever somebody said in confidence to the universe. I place this in your hands. So also recognizing when your body is telling you that you have accumulated a lot of stories from others. You have witnessed a lot of things throughout your travels, and now it's needing time to process and purge what is no longer serving its highest good. And while doing so, it extracts the wisdom for the journey forward. So life really does give us all sorts of things so that we can learn and we can evolve. And sometimes, especially if you have gate 33 in your human design chart, it's going to feel to you like more happens to you in a day than most other people go through in a week. Things just keep coming and coming and coming and coming. And oftentimes you can go to bed at the end of the night and you're just like, I don't even know where to begin. I don't even know where to begin processing how much transpired today. And sometimes we're really good at forgetting what we've done because it is too much to hold on to, and or we've reached the understanding within our own evolutionary journey that we take each moment as it comes, we extract what is needing for our own growth, and we release the rest of it. Your body is going to tell you when you are full, when you are needing that break. And all of our bodies tell us that. You don't have to have gate 33 in your human design chart to know that you're going to need times to rest. You're going to need time to step out of the front line of your family, the relationship, the workplace, society, whatever it is. We all get to those points where we're just like, I just need to be with self. I just need to shut off for a little while, to turn off the electronics, to go out in nature. However, it is for you that you really find the space to just rejuvenate your mind, your body, and that soul's connection so that you can then step back into life and engage from a place of being from your best self. So that gate of retreat really is here to send us into the thick of action in order to guide others by using our stories of accumulated experiences. And this is often why we see a lot of elders or a lot of teachers, gurus, sages, they step into their role later on in life because they need life's experiences to then put them in a position where they can share what they've learned with others. So we're also here to learn to recognize within ourselves when to retreat and when to resume that position to the front of life. Because we are here to take responsibility for what is ours to take responsibility for. But you can't always be in the go, 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 go energy. Even if you are a generator, and this is one of the common mistakes that generators make, is they get this narrative of, well, I'm always busy. I have all this energy and I'm just go, 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 go. Every single battery needs time to recharge. And just because you enjoy being busy, if you don't have the clarity of what you are being busy doing, you are leaking out potential energy that could be used to cultivate a whole nother layer of ascension for yourself. So it really is about being very mindful, knowing when to step out, knowing when to step in, and seeing how our past and all of our experiences really do help to shape the person you are now and to build on that beautiful life stepping forward. This is also part of what is known as the channel of the prodigal. And again, you're going to want to check your human design chart to see if you have this within your design. It's a connection between the throat center and what is known as the center of self in human design. And the center of self is like your high heart. It holds all four of the love languages, which also represents the four seasons, and it holds the four directional gates. it also is that place where it's very much a magnet that is keeping us in alignment to our higher self. So whenever we see a channel, that means there's an energetic flow between that gate, in this case, gate number 13, which is known as the gate of the listener, and the voice of retreat. So it's understanding that through the channel, through the ability to listen, we do observe and absorb the stories of the world. Now, you may or may not have gate 13 circled in your human design chart, but here's the reality. All of us have ears, all of us listen, all of us have skin that breathes, that feels, that senses, that knows. We pick up on a lot of energy. We're constantly absorbing stories from others, and we're constantly absorbing stories from our mind, from our eyes, our ears, our nose, our taste, our feels, right? All of those senses that we have. So we're constantly in a state of creating, of absorbing, of learning, of processing. And through that gateway of listening, you can get overwhelmed by what you have taken in. And this is where it is beautiful to really become a very compassionate listener, which means being the sacred witness to somebody, allowing somebody to do or to say exactly what it is that they need to say in order to express themselves. And this doesn't mean attacking you or berating you. You need to have healthy boundaries for that. But it's allowing somebody to talk about their life experiences, to share sometimes those really heavy things that happen, because by expressing it, it helps it to release the connection to it. So you don't ever forget your experience, but it starts to have less and less power over you when you're allowed to talk about it. You're allowed to process it. You're allowed to be honest with yourself to say that hurt, that wasn't right, to really look at the wounding. And by opening the wounding, expressing the wounding, allowing then the wounding to heal by calling in the light. So compassion teaches us to not judge somebody else's story, to not offer an opinion to someone else's story, to not give advice to somebody else's story, but to just simply listen. And if we were to be honest with ourselves, that's what we want as well. We want somebody to listen beyond listening to us. We're seeking understanding. We're seeking connection. We don't want somebody to tell us what to do. Sometimes we may think we want that, but then we receive somebody else's advice and we're still doubting, so we go and ask somebody else. And there's never this layer of soul satisfaction that can come by sitting with somebody who is allowing space for you to just talk, to hear yourself. Maybe you need to curse, to swear, to cry, whatever it is. It just allows yourself to be free. So the channel of the prodigal is a leadership channel. It is there to help provide direction, creative guidance, and a sense of purpose for others. And it really does that by validating someone else's stories. You don't need to know if it's right or wrong. It is the truth as that individual knows it to be. So by holding the space to truly listen to somebody, and creative guidance is then asking them questions, helping them to self-actualize and to come to their own decisions. Also acknowledging, that sounds really hard. What do you think you're going to do next? What is your next step? How are you going to move forward from here? Questions like that all put the ownership in the hands of the other, but you're also telling them that, yes, I see and I feel that this is hard for you, but I'm really curious to know how you are moving forward. So you're telling them that you believe in them. You know they have what it takes to keep walking, to empower themselves by claiming responsibility for their life. So it is a very powerful directional gateway of moving us in the direction of empowering the self. So it is designed to bear testimony to all you have seen, all you have felt, and all you've experienced in life's real dramas. And the more we kind of see how life is a big unfolding drama, and how a lot of times, we do it to ourselves. We create an emotional expectation, and when our personal expectations not met, we crash. And then we have a story in our mind about how the other person did such and such to ourselves, right? We feed those narratives, or we believe the thoughts in the mind that took root when we were children that says, you're not good enough, you're not worthy enough, you can't do that. And we start believing those. Well, we're here to purge out what is not of our truths. You came here designed to do exactly what you are meant to do. You're not here to compare yourself to anybody else. You're here to be yourself, your authentic self, to blossom into your own flower. So as you really start to see life, see the dramas in life, see the character roles we play in life, see how we tend to create our own dramas, our own stories. We stay in our patterns of behaviors and then we break free of our patterns of behaviors. The more you see that, the more you then become a beautiful teacher of wisdom. Because you have walked the talk, you can share in your own experience of the journey. So the voice is often expressed as, I remember when, or in my experience, when I was your age, right? So it's coming almost from the crone, the grandmother, or the grandfather energy, the elder, the wise one. And it just has this beautiful, non-judgmental quality to it, where if the other person's open to receiving, if they're ready to listen, they're going to take it into their body. They're going to consider that, and they may or may not listen to that voice, but they're going to consider that. So it's really important for each and every one of us to listen to ourselves, to ensure that we are tuned in to the voice of the divine and not the ego's voice, the self-saboteur, the fear story, the victim that is in there. And to really allow yourself that time to retreat, to process through what you've traveled. Taking the time to journal, taking the time to just find your voice, express your voice, notice your wisdom, notice your life experience, see how you have grown in that. And then to also learn how to detach ourselves from the program in the mind that says we're here to fix or save anyone else. That's not our job. We're not God, we're not source, we're not the creator. We're not here to tell somebody else what to do and how they live their life. That is our ego that wants to keep itself safe, that wants to stay comfortable by making sure that everybody else around it is doing what it believes they should be doing. So we learn how to treat other people as competent individuals to walk their own journey. We stop interfering with the divine plan And you pull all that energy back into yourself by taking that time to retreat and focusing on you. If the other person is doing something you don't like, that's your opportunity to go, why did that bother me? Why was I triggered by that conversation? Why do I feel such sadness? Why do I feel anger? Why do I feel like my heart is squeezing in? Those are all opportunities for you to go deeper into yourself to get to know yourself. Not to let the mind figure it all out, not to let the fear interfere and try to create a story, but for you to come into that place of relaxation, the retreat, the healthy mind, the healthy body, so the spirit of you can rise up and be that voice of wisdom where you can then learn and grow in your own journey. We're now going to move into the teachings of the gene keys. So the gene keys come in, and every one of those numbers on your human design chart, they're called a gate. So the gene key is the key that opens up the gate, and it gives us the inner alchemy potential to move out of your lower vibrating energies, those shadow tendencies in there, and learn to call in more of the gift aspect to then rise to those higher vibrations. And this is all done through a process of self-actualization. And we are using the book, The Gene Keys by Richard Rudd. I highly encourage you to get a copy if that's available to you. And we're going to share some of the extracts from those teachings and add in a few of our own contemplations as well. So this is where we're going to dive in now to look at the shadow of forgetting, the dilemma of our attention, the gift of mindfulness, and the sooty of revelation. And we're starting right off the bat with that shadow of forgetting and the dilemma of attention. And really looking at ourself in the mirror, looking at our own reflection. Who are you? What are you? Getting to know the self. So the 33rd shadow is our great shadow of our forgetting. And it's designed to ensure that we remain in the illusion that we are separate and we're alone instead of unified and all one. And it actually acts as one of 3 stop codons in our DNA, which means it's part of what is known as the ring of trials, a series of trials that we all must learn to transcend. So in this case, that center of self, that is our magnetic connection to the divine, but it also holds us in that state of separation so that we personally use our free will to remember our divine nature, to choose the path of love, to overcome our lower vibrating energies, and to harness and cultivate the higher frequencies. That is the free will choice. Whenever we have a dilemma in front of ourselves, we can choose how we're going to react. We might be very impulsive and quick to anger, quick to judgment, quick to blame, shame, right? And really acknowledging that that's where we are. And then learning to shift to forgiveness, understanding, better communication. All of these things that are available to us is for us to learn to grow and evolve. So we are placed in a state of forgetting our true nature, so that just like the butterfly, us being the caterpillar at this stage has to keep digesting life in front of itself. In the caterpillar's case, the leaf. In our case, our environment. Then going internally within ourselves to go through the cocooning stage, which is the process of our own awakening. It is not comfortable, I would imagine, for the caterpillar to literally break itself apart and be reconfigured into something that can fly, that can't be comfortable. And it's not comfortable going through your own awakening process. But we each have to transcend whatever it is that we came here as fears, collective fears, to cultivate a greater faith in. Meaning we transcend those fears and we learn to empower the self by remembering our divine nature. So this is a very powerful gate. It does come in the numerology of the 3-3. Those are powerful numbers. So we go all the way back. The Gene Keys teaches us that every time a human being incarnates, the only thing they bring with them is their memories. And these memories are known as samskaras. So samskaras are not just our memories, but they're also our wounding. And we don't retain memories of our past lives very rarely. Sometimes people do have an awakening. I've had two myself where I must have been destined to remember certain things. But most individuals don't retain those kind of memories. But it's in your auric field. So it's in your vibrating energy that's all around you. And that's why sometimes we're like, I don't know why I'm so afraid of that. Well, it's probably linked to a past life and or you've absorbed the stories of the world that taught you to be afraid of that. So the more you get to know and question the validity of those fears, the more you start to do your own transformation. Your memories, karma, is also collective in nature. So it provides the script for your life, the story of your life. As a soul, before you incarnate, you work with your council, you work with your guides, you decide what you're going to come to earth to transcend, to experience. So that becomes your piece of the collective karma that you are taking on for the betterment of humanity. We are all in this together. So you're not being punished for things that you've done in past lives. You made a soul decision for whatever reason that you wanted to experience certain things in order to help you learn and grow and evolve for whatever karmic relationship your soul decided to go through in this present incarnation. So it is your opportunity for tremendous growth and strength to find a deeper sense of love in whatever it is you've been experiencing. Those samskaras, our memories, our woundings, they're also attached to our desires, which means we're always acting out our fears. We're always trying to self-protect. We always have certain cravings for certain things, right? It's part of our nature. So we're learning to understand our nature and then to transform the higher qualities of our nature. We always keep the lower qualities because we are all things. So it's not about getting rid of your ego or your shadows. It's about surrounding it in love so that the light is the dominant field in that. The more our wounds, our fears, our samskaras, the more that they really play out in our script of life through our desires, we keep creating more. So every time you tell yourself a fear of, I can't do that, and life keeps giving you opportunities to do that, and you keep saying, I can't do that, I can't do that, think of how powerful that blocking wall to that opportunity becomes. So when you're a little child, it might come as like a tiny little bit of, I can't. But when you keep feeding it, by the time you get to an adult, you got a solid Fort Knox around your heart that is saying, I can't. And it's all fed into the belief of that samskara, that desire, feeding the narrative to that story, the script of your life, that is keeping that wall alive. So the ancients say that we literally live in a wheel or a net of our own making. And paradoxically, we are unable to understand who we truly are because of those memories we keep creating. So, because we keep feeding those heart walls, I like to call them, the more we can't remember that, you know what? What if you could? What if you could allow yourself to try? What if it's not about getting things perfect? What if it's just about having the experience, having fun? So we learn to go back to that inner child of you that totally believed in themselves, and they didn't care if they got it right or wrong. They just wanted to try it. They wanted to play. They had an openness to the world around them until a seed of doubt got planted in the mind and took root. And then the mind, the ego of the self-protection, the fear, started creating all these barriers, these samskaras that create that self-protection. So we are literally cocooning ourselves from experiencing life. And the whole journey of our awakening is to crack those open to then eventually emerge as our true self, the butterfly, the one who is free, the one who knows how to fly. It is not bound by the earth, but it is a part of this earth. Our memories, those samskaras, they keep us in a state of forgetting. So your greatest challenge in life is to see through your own illusions in order to set yourself free. So they are your wounds. And noticing how we create our own self-protection. So whenever something happens and it hurts us, what do you do to protect yourself? Right? So you might have a feeling, someone might say a word it triggers, a tone of voice it triggers, your eyes might see something and it triggers. And what are those? What is it teaching you? So we're here to start seeing our wounds, clear our wounds, and eventually let them be healed. And it's understanding that you're always going to have it scar. You're not going to forget what happened to you. That's your reminder of the journey. That's your wisdom. But you're releasing the pain story. You're releasing the darkness, the suppression, the chains around you. You're learning to forgive yourself for having to carry that. So you learn to set yourself free while bearing the reminder of you had to walk through that energy. And then you become a very powerful witness to somebody else who's got a very similar scar. And maybe you can help them to unravel their own cocoon so that they can set themselves free. So the process of awakening is really the process of learning to question yourself. It's going to intercept the program of the forgetting and creating opportunities then to transcend your own continuous pattern. So we're going to keep repeating the same things over and over again, which is the definition of sanity, doing the same things over and over again, expecting a different result. And this is why we're like, why do I keep getting into the same relationships? Why do I keep ending up in the same kind of jobs? Why does this keep happening to me? Well, until we get clear on what the teaching lesson is, what is the pattern we are in? What is the wound that keeps us in that narrative to the story? How are we self-sabotage? What is the mind telling us about that? Why are you so afraid of that? So it's only in learning to question yourself that we then start to awaken. You are literally looking at your own reflection. You're retreating within inside yourself to say, okay, you know what? This isn't working for me. I need to understand what's going on. So you're paying more attention to your body, you're paying more attention to your mind, You're noticing yourself. That's awakening. It's all an internal journey. And our most challenging relationships, they're going to offer us the greatest healing. And whenever we have a codependent relationship, that's an energetic wound. And that energetic wound is binding yourself to somebody else or some kind of experience in a way that feels deeply uncomfortable. So it's learning to surrender into that, learning to ask for help from the higher versions, from God, Source, the Creator, to move you through the energy, to open you to the experience, to help you embrace its teachings so that you can finish that lesson and be done with it. That is how we set ourselves free. We're going to keep repeating the same lesson over and over again until we finally master and understand what it is that they're here to teach us. There's always two sides to any kind of shadow energy. We have a tendency to either really repress it within ourselves or we become very reactive, meaning we send it away from the body. So whenever we are in a repressive nature, in the state of forgetting, the dilemma of attention, so where our attention goes, the repressed is being very reserved. So when you are in a reserved state, it's going to be really hard to communicate with other people. You're going to try to self-isolate. And that comes from a very deep psychological insecurity that often comes from thoughts of low self-worth, low self-esteem, not feeling good enough. So those are all narratives to a story, a script of life that's repeated from the mind over and over again. And it keeps pulling the self back from engaging in any kind of experiences in a form of self-protection. But it's a self-protection that is hurting the individual because that individual really does want to go have friends, wants to engage the world, wants to feel safe. So it's like having so much love inside your body, but then feeling torn apart because you can't express that love. And you can't express that love because your mind, your fears are not giving yourself permission to engage in life. So it's learning to address, how am I feeding that belief system, that fear, so that I can learn how to soften my edges, take down my walls in a way that feels safe and it's mindful to then become a more active participant with life. It may be somebody who has really had an experience of being forgotten by the world in this lifetime or another lifetime, and having then to remember that you are part of the world. You've never not been part of the world. So looking at how you tend to hide, it could be through work, through living arrangements, self-isolation. Where is it that you are reserving yourself, protecting yourself, where your true nature really does want to get involved? And it's interesting because the Gene Keys will teach us that when someone who is reserved finally awakens, they actually surprise both themselves and others by how much wisdom they have absorbed over the course of their life or lives. So it's like facing that story of I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, and then coming through, working through that dialogue and releasing that dialogue to then realize, oh my gosh, I actually have a lot of life experience. The world teaches us to have certificates and degrees on the wall, but it's a piece of paper. There's a lot of people that intuitively know how to do things or they've learned themselves how to do things. But for whatever reason, if society's little piece of paper is not on the wall, we tend to doubt ourselves and our ability. And usually it's because there's a reflection of other people not taking it seriously, because they're buying into that other program. But when we remember who we are and our life experience and the wisdom and the soul's wisdom from many, many, many lifetimes, then we see through the shadow of our own forgetting to understand that it is so much more than this fierce story of a piece of paper on the wall. We have unlimited potential, but we limit our potential. So the journey of remembering is to move through those limitations, to see them, to feel them, to notice how they impact your life, and to learn how to untangle it to then set yourself free. In a reactive state, so setting it out into the world, this is what's known as sensorous. So it really unconsciously is trying to provoke a reaction in somebody else in order to not feel alone. And this is where that saying misery loves company comes from. Because I hurt, I'm going to get you to hurt. Because I'm angry, I want you to be angry. Because I'm bored, I'm going to poke and get a reaction out of you. So then there's something stimulating that is happening. So there's many ways that we have that reactive nature. At a deep level, there's an understanding of the emotional locks that we have that keep us in a state of forgetting. And we try to gain attention by pointing that out in other people. And oftentimes that does upset them. And a good way to look at this is how easy is it for you to spot a pattern in somebody else where you're like, well, they're in a self-sabotage. They keep doing the same thing over and over again, and they're just repeating a behavior, right? So when it's really easy to see the pattern in somebody else, a lot of times we like, oh, I could help them. Or we tell so-and-so to see that pattern over there. But every time we do that, we're not looking at our own patterns. So it's like if you're seeing that pattern, where's that pattern showing up in yourself? So as long as we keep ourselves distracted by figuring out everybody else and pointing out things in everybody else, we're not paying attention to self. So that's being very reactive. It's sending all the energy away from you. And a lot of times there's a lot of buildup then of resentment and anger until finally reaching that point of, I'm frustrated and I'm tired. I am so done with this. And if you've been trying to spend a lot of energy guiding somebody else, working for somebody else, helping somebody else, and they're not getting anywhere, you're getting upset. That's the universe telling you, well, are you ready to start working on yourself? Imagine the life-changing situation you could be in if you would take all that energy that you spend on external and you brought it into you to be the best version of yourself. So when we learn to come out of our reactive nature and we break those patterns of blaming the world, wasting our time and energy on other things that are distracting us away from our truth, so being our own master manipulator, and we really start to spend that time inwards, working on ourselves, remembering what it's like to love and be loved. Again, it's that process of setting ourselves free, breaking free of the chains of forgetting by noticing those distractions and noticing our own tendencies and finding our wound patterns, having those honest conversations with ourselves, noticing that we're in a lesson, a teaching lesson, discovering what that lesson is, learning to master that lesson, and finally getting set free to go and take another life experience. So life is like a continuous book, continuously writing itself. And if we were to remember that you have lived the same story in a different way a billion times over, and it still causes you suffering, you would immediately snap out of your pattern, you would close that book, and you would transcend that suffering. Would you consciously choose to pick up the same hurt story over and over and over again and keep reading it? And those are the questions we have to keep asking ourselves. Why am I still here? Why am I still telling myself this? Why do I still believe this? And even recognize, what story do you keep telling yourself? And then what exists on the other side of that fear story? Who or what would you be when you no longer believe in or you're motivated by that fear? And then noticing how many decisions do you make from fear? So every time we make a decision from fear, we're not making a decision from our truth. And this is where getting to know your human design chart and your inner authority or your outer authority, depending on your design, that's where you really switch from breaking free of the pattern of reacting out of emotions or reacting out of stress, reacting out of fear, and learning to really get to know yourself, making those decisions from your inner authority, your clarity, and then noticing how your life moves in a direction that's for your highest good. Setting yourself free by taking back the power of remembering your divinity. So noticing then what would happen if you make decisions from trusting in your higher self wisdom. That's our journey to move through the shadow into the light, learning to set yourself free in the process. So we're going to move to the gift of mindfulness. And I pulled a card from Corey Thorne Cameron's The Everyday Goddess Oracle cards. And I absolutely love these. This is one of my favorite is this Wisdom of the Elder Nugimi. And really reminding ourselves that, it does feel overwhelming to walk this journey. It does feel at times like you're alone, like you can't figure it out, like you can't do this. And when we remember that we're not here to figure it out alone, that we have this entire counsel of light that is wrapping us and nurturing us, and we have to remember that we have free will. We have to invite them in. We have to ask for help. We have to retreat from the busyness of our mind and life to sit in the silence so that we can listen. Then we really empower ourselves. So I love this image just as that reminder of how much love, and it's kind of keeping that chin up. We tend to look down at our feet. It's like, no, look up, look up. In other words, look up into that third eye awareness, into the solution, not the problem. If we sit in the problem, we can't raise our vibration to the potential, the innovation, the inspiration, the solutions that do exist. There's unlimited potential in there. So as you awaken, you become more mindful of your thoughts, your behaviors, and your actions. You mature by taking responsibility for how you're feeling, and you begin a journey of exploring those feelings to see how they've played out in your life. So we learned about that in one of our previous classes is how our five senses, our sight, our hearing, our smell, our taste, our touch, they distract us from feeling. When you came into the world, the newborn baby of you felt everything. You're wide open, you're pure, you're light, you're innocent. We start to learn how to suppress our feeling by the five senses that distract us from paying attention to how we feel. And it starts early. As a baby, you're distracted from crying by the sound of a rattle, a toy, someone's voice, food, right? There's something in there that distracts you away from, well, I'm feeling cold, I'm feeling tired, I'm feeling hungry, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling that. And then as a child, we start engaging in more and more things. It's easier and easier to distract ourselves. By the time you're an adult, you are a master of distractions. So mindfulness becomes a way of rewinding yourself back to your original state of being able to feel the truth of what is going on around you. So it begins by noticing how you distract yourself, noticing your fears, noticing how you tend to self-sabotage. You start to see that inner child of you by becoming the parent, which is the higher self looking at your inner self. And I don't know if you've ever had the experience where you feel like someone's watching you, someone's hearing you, or you're observing yourself doing something. Those are all validations to tapping into that higher power. The ego is going to tell you that you're doing something wrong. It's going to berate you. It's going to make you feel bad. Your higher self is love. It's going to say, are you sure you want to do that? What if there's another way? Let me wrap my arms around you. Let's pick yourself up and let's take a step forward. Let's do one thing today that you can do so that you can walk in the direction of your highest good. Let's be gentle on self. Let's be loving on self. Let's be mindful of what your mind is telling your heart. Let's change the narrative to the story. Let's embrace that hurt, that pain, so that it's allowed to be seen, to felt, to be experienced, and it's no longer shoved back in, but it's allowed to come up, to come out, to then be set free. So the more mindful you become, the more you listen to the voice of that higher self, your parenting thought. We begin to grow both emotionally and spiritually. And being mindful means that you have to first see and acknowledge your wounds. That is your samskaras. And until you do that, you cannot heal them or transcend them. So mindfulness is the pathway to awakening. It is the stop codon of stopping the pattern, going through your trials in order to grow and evolve, in order to become that butterfly. So here's the ring of trials. And I love in the middle, it forms the flower of life. It is a seed of potential. Through the ring of trials, you learn how to discriminate, which is the 12th gift, between that which keeps you trapped and that which brings you freedom. And you do this by moderating your thoughts, your feelings, your speech, and your actions. Through the 56th gift of enrichment, you see how easily you are distracted away from your true nature by your senses, those 5 senses we talked about. You begin to draw towards you experiences that enrich your spirit rather than experiences and addictions that simply stimulate or overstimulate your senses. So you then remember who you truly are, which is the 33rd gift. That is the journey through more than existing. So when we break that down, the shadow is like the seed. We're in the dark, right? We're held in the womb of Mother Earth, the womb of gestation, possibilities, the void, the black hole. So in the ring of trials, there's 3 different gates, different gene keys, known as the shadow of forgetting, the shadow of distraction, the shadow of vanity. And when we learn then to start bringing in the gift qualities, this is when the seed starts breaking out of the ground and coming up into the light. It is a young, tender shoot, so it needs a lot of love, a lot of nurturing, a lot of understanding, a lot of compassion, a lot of grace, just like that seedling. So this is where we really learn to be very mindful, to enrich ourselves by taking on life experiences that feed your soul. What brings you happiness and joy? What fills your cup? Learning to discriminate between, is this good for me? Is this harmful for me? Is this a fear-based decision? Is this going to get me stuck in a pattern? Or is this going to set myself free? So as we learn to transcend our shadows through integrating more light, so we bring the seed and we rise it up into the light aspect. The more light we start bringing into our bodies, the physical DNA starts to mutate. And right now, we're getting a lot of light codes coming into the world. People are ascending and changing faster than ever because of the intensity of this light that's filtering through. So we are in a process of being prepared to receive more and more light until ultimately we flower, until you get to the point of all of your personal protection, your heart walls have been dissolved. And that's like that seedling then growing to become the flower and opening up to its fullness for the world to enjoy. That's you stepping into your authenticity, remembering your divine nature. And that's where we see the sooty of revolution, the intoxication of life, where life is just beyond words. It's like a state of being drunk in the joy and the happiness and the beauty of everything around you. It brings forward our purity, who you were before you took in any seeds of doubt and limitations and grew them into weeds. So you're also going through a process of learning to pull out the weeds that have taken root in your own mind. So in the teachings of Buddha, gate 33, the one you're in right now, is realizing you're in hell. You're not in heaven. You're in a self-created hell. And Buddha told us, all life is suffering. Life is here to ultimately transform us, for us to look and say, that's not the way. That hurts. That's not right. So we change it within ourselves to add to the collective consciousness that chooses a different way, a new path. And the more that come to that realization, the more pull into that direction of that new way. But while we are here, it's being very honest of saying, it's not all sunshine and butterflies. There is a lot of hurt. There is a lot of pain. There is a lot of wounds. How can we love ourselves and others through that? How can we move from this hell and create our heaven on earth? And the only thing that you and I are here to do is our own inner work. Holding the faith that everybody will move through their own process of being the seed, being the little plant, and coming into their own bloom in their own divine timing. Trusting and sending them love, sending them encouragement, sending them empowerment, helping them to do their own self-actualization. So the 56th gate teaches us to gradually learn to transcend our own suffering. The parent is here to teach the child to make their own decisions and to claim full responsibility over their actions and their behaviors and their choices. Well, a lot of us weren't raised that way, so we first have to become the parent to ourselves and then learn how to then pass that parenting along to the next generations. And over time, we start to see the benefits of children coming into the world raised by healthy, healed adults that can really help them to transcend, to be the best version of themselves, and to move into that flowering aspect a lot faster and a lot easier. So we learn through the 12th gate to confront the true nature of ourself. Like, I did that. That was me. That was my choice. That was my decision. And then, don't beat yourself up over it, but re-solidify there was probably a better way. And more mindfully, maybe choosing that other way next time. To continue a process of beating yourself up keeps yourself in that state of hell. It keeps you in the victim instead of humbling yourself to realize we're all so perfectly imperfect. We are all just simply human. We're learning and growing. We are very emotionally immature. This is new energy for us, and calling in grace to help you transcend that. So when the 33 Sudi finally dawns, all that you were is forgotten, and all that you could be is remembered. And in the teachings of More Than Existing with Corey Thorne Cameron, it's a very simple question. Who are you without a story? What is your full potential when you are no longer telling yourself through your eyes and through your mind what you're supposed to be? So, who are you without a story? Who is this version of you beyond the heart walls of your own self-protection, beyond your fears, beyond your limitations? Who are you? And are you willing to go into a retreat to remember, to spend the time with you, to see yourself in the reflection, to feed yourself the love, the nutrition that is required to grow? And that means taking care of your physical human, your emotional state, your mental state, and connecting with the soul, connecting with those higher levels that are outside of our small 3D reality. So, this is where we learn to transcend into the fifth dimension, the seventh dimension, and beyond that. We are unlimited in our potential, but it starts by coming home to you first and moving through your own wounding so that they no longer instantly create this self-protection that stops you from living life to the fullest and accepting all things are as they are. And it's not all sunshine and roses, but it is part of the human experience. So I hope you enjoyed this teaching, and I look forward to continuing Leo season with you. If you have your own aha moments, or if you'd like to leave some feedback, I'd love to hear from you down in the comments below. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.